The oars beat the river like enormous black wings, steady and inexorable, and the cold mist curling from the water shivered beneath each stroke. Dawn's first pale radiance had only begun to silver the wine-dark tide of the Blackwater rush when Lord Stannis Baratheon's war host slid upriver in grim, silent formation. Yet long before the rising sun glimmered upon their gilt prows, every man aboard the monarch's fleet could taste victory in the salt-laden air. Davos Seaworth stood upon the forecastle of Black Betha, boots braced to the roll, watching the towers of kings landing emerge phantom-like through the gloom. He had known this river in darker nights, smuggling onions beneath the sleeping eyes of usurpers and gold cloaks alike, but never had its hush felt so fateful. To starboard, the squat mass of the river gate, Mud Gate, folk called it, brooded against the water, torches guttering along its rampart. Even from here Davos sensed the gatehouse slumbered, its watch clad in weariness rather than armor. Tyrion Lannister's famed wildfire defense, the one every whisper across the narrow sea had sworn would make the river burn green, was nowhere to be seen. A thin smile touched the smuggler's bearded mouth. No wildfire, no chain, and no time for the lions to rouse. The gods, if any he dared name, had opened the river for Stannis like a road to destiny. All that remained was to seize it. Behind him, the high, stern voice of Ser Imry Florent rang clear in the pre-dawn hush. "Loose oars on my signal, archers forward, flaming shafts only at my order. Remember, the king wants prisoners where possible. The throne is won more by loyalty than slaughter." Yet even Imry, gaunt in black armor emblazoned with the fiery heart of R'hllor, could not disguise the tremor that ran beneath his commands. All men feared battle, Davos knew, but how many would admit it with a red priestess aboard whispering of fate and sacrifice? Melisandre of Ashai stood aft beneath the mainsail's shadow, scarlet robes snap fluttering in the river wind. Her eyes, dark embers in the half-light, never left the distant walls. Davos felt the weight of her gaze though she looked elsewhere. He wondered, as always, what horrors she saw in the flames she tended nightly in the king's pavilion, what dark bargains she whispered when mortal ears fled to slumber. Yet there was no time for dread. Duty ruled his heart more surely than fear. Iron groaned beneath footfall as the king himself strode forward, visor up, jaw clenched like granite. Lord Stannis wore no crown, only a plain steel sallet and a cloak of Baratheon gold, its new sigil of the fiery heart superimposed upon the crowned stag. Light from the torches set that sigil flickering, as though the cloth itself sizzled with secret fire. He looked upon the city as a man might gaze upon a long-lost inheritance at last within reach. "Report," Stannis said. Imry bowed stiffly. "We passed the mouth of the Blackwater rush unchallenged, your grace. No boom chain, no river barrier. The Lion's fleet lies idle in its quays below the Red Keep." "Wake them shortly," Stannis muttered. "By storm or by sword, they will know I am come." His blue eyes swept the battlements, shapes of gray ironstone, softened in dawn's fog. "When the river gate is ours, we strike for the Lion Gate. Davos, your sons are ready." "Aye, sire." His voice rasped from the chill. "Dale leads the first company ashore. Mathos bears the king's standard. The tide favors us for 2 hours. After that, the current turns against the hulls. Then 2 hours will suffice." Stannis drew breath. "Signal the fleet. Sound advance." Horns split the river hush. Oars dipped sleek, creaking, driving the barges and cogs upriver as seabirds screamed overhead. Decks shuddered beneath the massed tread of men donning helms, hefting spears and sail-dark shields. Davos felt the pulse of each stroke in his marrow, the slow drumroll of fate beating against his ribs. Across the water, amid the muddy flats beneath the city walls, shadowed figures scurried, lazy watchmen startled suddenly to purpose. A bell clanged atop the gatehouse, thin at first, then frenzied. Torches leapt to life along the ramparts, spreading like foxfire through the gloom. Yet still no emerald brilliance blossomed across the river. Not even a barrel-primed, Davos thought. Tyrion Lannister at that instant stood upon the inner barbican of the King's Gate, breath steaming in the chill, cursing the lethargy of fools. He had spent moons cajoling alchemists, bribing sailors, bullying smiths. Yet now, when the hour came, chaos reigned. Wildfire casks meant for the Blackwater sparkled unlit in the alchemist's guild hall, and the great chain he had contrived lay half-submerged beside its eastern pylon, unfinished for want of iron links promised by Cersei's ever-squabbling council of coin. If father had been in the city, Tyrion thought darkly, they'd have bled iron from their own privy seats to see that chain done. But Lord Tywin rode still in the west, chasing Robb Stark's shadow through the riverlands, that left King's Landing under Joffrey's callow rule and Cersei's venomous counsel. Ser Jacelyn, Tyrion barked to Bywater beside him, roused every archer from Flea Bottom to the Honeywine. I want a forest of bows on these walls before the sun breaks clear. And if the city watch captain below dares claim he needs leave to wake his lads, drag him up here so I can toss him off this parapet. Bywater's burned cheek twitched in a grim smile. At once, my lord. Steel boots clanged down the stair. Tyrion peered into the river fog. Dozens of lantern eyes gleamed, prow lanterns, stern beacons, multiplying until they blurred into a single shimmering line. 100, perhaps more. Stannis had brought his whole fleet. He thinks to smash us before we rub our eyes, Tyrion mused. For once, a Baratheon shows sense. Yet even sense might founder upon desperation. The dwarf turned toward the red keep's crimson spires floating ghost-like above the city. He pictured Cersei within Maegor's holdfast, pacing, wine cup clutched white-knuckled. He pictured Joffrey yawning over his crossbow, asking when he might ride out to slay traitors. God save us, Tyrion thought, we are ruled by children and zealots. A roar echoed across the water, the crash of a ram against the mud gate. Splinters flew where iron-shod oak slammed into pine. The river gate shuddered like a heart beneath a stag's charge. On the forecastle of Black Betha, Davos saw the arrow-lipped murder holes glow with sudden torchlight. Too tardily, with a heavy groan the gates burst inward. Water churned as barges surged through the breach, disgorging Baratheon men-at-arms upon the wharf. Dale Seaworth vaulted first, banner pole in hand, the crowned stag surmounted by a heart of flame snapping overhead. Mud sucked at boots, but his company formed rangeways quick and clean, shields locking edge to edge. Spears bristled beyond. A jagged cheer rose, borne by 200 throats. From the ramparts arrows hissed downward, yet most skipped from shields or thudded into pilings. Mere crossbow quarrels would not slow the storm. Within moments serpentine grapnels latched stone. Ropes tautened. Siege ladders slammed against the walls. Men began to climb. Inside, the gatehouse defenders reeled. Gold cloaks cursed, stumbled. Some flung helms aside and ran. Ser Osmond Kettleblack, roused from a cushion, tried to rally his watch with oaths of royal favor, but the name of King Joffrey swayed few hearts when seasoned battle-lords were scaling the walls. Tyrion felt the tremor of panic ripple through the streets below. Bell towers clanged out the dreaded call enemy within the city. From Cobbler's Square to the Street of Flower, shutters banged closed. Thieves fled with what silver they could snatch. Whores prayed to any god quick to forgive. Light the beacons, Tyrion shouted to a page. Signal the Red Keep. Tell the Queen the mud gate is breached. He felt a surge of black fury at the small council, at Pycelle's dithering, at Baelish's sly half-promises. They had quarreled over coin while Stannis forged swords. Now the first sword of the realm was at their throat. Smoke curled suddenly from the river. Davos turned, squinting. The Lannister galleys moored below Dragonstone Wharf had at last caught the scent of war. Sails unfurling, they lurched from their quays, seeking to ram the oncoming fleet. But the Blackwater's current ran north to south. Stannis' ships had momentum behind them, while the defenders wallowed against the tide. For Baratheon Dromons swept past the enemy vanguard, side-slipping between hulls, oars churning white froth. Firepots arched from their decks, trailing sparks that fell upon Lannister canvas. Flames licked upward, yellow rather than emerald, but deadly all the same. Ser Imry raised his sword, voice ringing over the roar. Signal the southern flank, drive between the keys. Cut them off from the river. A horn answered. Leather sails bellied. The fleet separated, half turning starboard to isolate the city's warships, half pressing onward to disgorge infantry near the Lion Gate. Davos glimpsed the crimson-painted hull of Queen's Glory listing, ablaze, as fury rammed her amidships. Screams echoed over water sweeter than any hymn to the smuggler's ear. Stannis watched in stone silence. Victory's first bloom shone in those stern blue eyes, yet he neither smiled nor exulted. Only when the Lion Gate towers came within bowshot did he lift his blade. "Land me there," he commanded. "I will take the gate myself." Davos swallowed. "Sire, the walls may still hold loyal companies. Iron yields but stone endures," Stannis said. "But stone alone cannot wield a sword. Today every sword that can must answer mine." He turned to Melisandre. "Lord of Light, we come to do justice. If I falter, may the fire purify my weakness." The Red Woman bowed, fiery hair streaming. "Your heart burns bright, your grace. All the forces of darkness will shatter before that flame." Davos felt chilled despite her words. He glanced to the flames consuming the lion ships, mere yellow tongues by contrast to the priestess's promised apocalypse. Let her stay to her prayers, he thought. I will keep faith with oars and steel. Within the Red Keep, Cersei Lannister received the beacon's crimson glare through the windows of Maegor's Holdfast. She had spent the night pacing hag-ridden beneath high vaults, every step echoing through stony silence. Now the city burned. She listened as if to phantom hoofbeats. Stannis' army at the gate, fire and murder in the streets. All her bold schemes, Joffrey's public cruelties meant to cow the commons, lavish bribes to the city watch, unraveled in an hour. Grand Maester Pycelle, panting, shuffled into the solar. "Your Grace," he wheezed. "Lord Tyrion begs you release the wildfire. He swears the harbor casks can still be rolled to the docks." "Rolled by whom?" Cersei snarled. "Fishermen? Thieves? If Stannis breaches the fish market, the docks are lost. The mule is too late with his folly." She flung wine across the rushes. "Tell the Maester of Whisperers he may burn himself if he likes. I will have no green hell within my city." A distant boom shuddered up through the keep. Siege rams at the Lion Gate or cannon perhaps. Cersei's breath caught. She remembered Aerys' madness, the clutch of paranoia in those pale eyes as he ordered wildfire cached beneath every district. She heard again the gasping terror of her own heart as Jaime told her how he slew the king to spare the city from such fire. Never again, she vowed. Joffrey burst in, cheeks flushed. "Mother, where is my helm? I would ride to the gate, lead the charge." "You will remain in the keep," she said, iron in her voice. "A king is more than a knight. Your presence is sword enough to guard these halls, my sweet." Joffrey's pout quivered. "I am no child." Yet he obeyed when Ser Meryn Trant laid a heavy hand upon his gilded shoulder. Cersei watched her golden son led away and wondered whether he would be king at sunset, or a hostage in Stannis' iron gauntlet. Outside, the Lion Gate thundered, struck by Stannis' ram of weirwood and bronze. The Heart's hammer, forged in dragonstone smokestacks, its prow carved as a crowned stag. On the parapet, Tyrion ran, ducking as quarrels whipped past, barking at crossbowmen to aim for the eyes beneath the rims of Baratheon helms. His lungs burned, his heart hammered, and his mind whirled for some last, desperate artifice. There was still one chance, though it tasted of ashes. Open the granaries to the mob, promise bread and pardon to any man who took arms for the king. The commons of King's Landing were fickle beasts, loyal to whichever master kept their bellies full. But would they rally quickly enough? A spray of sand showered him as the outer gate crumbled. Jagged beams splintered inward. Behind, the portcullis still barred the Barbican throat. Yet already Stannis' men poured through the breach, shields raised above bright, upthrust spears. Tyrion glimpsed the royal standard flying above them. Not the crowned stag alone, but crowned stag heart aflame. Lawler, he thought. Even Stannis has found a god of his own. For an instant, the dwarf tasted despair heavier than any wine. Then he seized bronze vambrace of a gold cloak trembling beside him. "What is your name?" The youth stammered. "Hal Halden, my lord." "Halden, this city is your mother. Will you let Stannis gutter her?" The boy swallowed. "And no. Then fight. Gather your fellows. Guard these walls as though your own mother screamed behind them." He shoved Halden toward the stairs. He had once mocked men who spoke of honor, but in that shivering dawn Tyrion felt a warrior's fire ignite in his small breast. If he must die, let it be on the wall, blade in hand, spitting defiance. Across the yard, Sansa Stark knelt within the September of the Red Keep, fingers entwined in desperate prayer. She prayed to the mother for mercy, to the warrior for courage, to the stranger for a swift end should the worst come. Lady Tanda's daughter Falais sobbed beside her, clutching a copper seven-pointed star. The Septon droned a litany, voice quavering each time the stones quaked. When the heavy doors burst open and Ser Lancel Lannister limped in, armor streaked with dust, Sansa's heart lurched. "Return to the holdfast," Lancel gasped. "The Queen commands all ladies within. Stannis's men are inside the city. They come up the Fishmonger Street even now." Falais shrieked. Sansa bit her lip. All her childhood tales of valiant knights now seemed bitter illusions. No prince rode to her rescue, only swords and smoke. She rose, guiding Falais by the elbow, and followed Ser Lancel through corridors hung with tapestries of ancient victories that now mocked them. Below, the markets of King's Landing had become mazes of terror. Fires leapt from overturned carts. Beggars looted bakeries, scattering flour like pale snow upon cobbles gone red with blood. Yet amid the chaos, Davos Seaworth strode at the head of his sons and 50 Stormlords straight toward the great September of Baelor, where the High Septon was rumored to bless Lannister banners. His oaken shield bore the black ship's mast he had taken as sigil after knighthood, and his heart thundered at the thought of fighting upon city streets he once trod as outlaw. "Fates will spun strange. Hold ranks," he called. "Cover the flanks, spearmen to the fore." They advanced, measured, disciplined, driving rogue goldcloaks before them like sheep. When they reached the September's marble stair, its massive doors swung inward with a groan. A procession of septas emerged bearing crystal lamps. The High Septon himself tottered behind, layered in brocade heavy as sin. "My children," the obese holy man wheezed, "lay down your arms. In the sight of the seven." Mathos Seaworth raised the crown stag banner. "In the sight of the one true king, yield the city's faith." His voice carried clear. "Or stand aside and let the rightful reign begin." The Septon's jowls quivered. "To break sanctuary is sacrilege. Sanctuary is for the innocent." Davos drew his father-of-pearl dagger. "Stannis needs only your blessing, not your blood. Speak it and kneel, and this place remains holy." Tears glittered in the Septon's eyes as he sank to his knees, rings clinking. I pronounce King Stannis of House Baratheon, first of his name, true and righteous king of the Undulls and the First Men." His voice cracked. "May the gods defend him." Davos exhaled a silent prayer of thanks. With the September pacified, half the city's devout would turn to Stannis by noon. He signaled his men to guard the steps but spill no blood. To conquer without slaughter was worth 100 songs. Back at the Lion Gate, the inner portcullis groaned upward. Smoke poured through the barbican, lit by the torchlight of Baratheon men surging inside. Tyrion, blade drawn, met them on the stones. He ducked, slashed, felt hot blood spurt across his face. The world shrank to clangor and crimson. One brute swung a maul. Tyrion sidestepped, stabbing into groin, dragging free as the giant fell. Pain bit his thigh, an arrow graze. He laughed, half mad, and pressed on. But the tide was too vast. A horn boomed behind him, retreat to the Red Keep. Gold cloaks broke, scattering along alleys. Tyrion knew the gate lost. He spat blood, limped back, signaling Bywater to form rearguard. They fell back street by street, leaving barricades of upturned wagons aflame to slow pursuit. Above the battle, Ravens rose black against a scarlet dawn. The sun cleared the eastern hills, illuminating the Red Keep's crimson banner one moment, then the fiery stag banner atop the river gate the next. Two kings' sigils flapped upon one city's walls. Inside Maegor's holdfast, Cersei received word of the September's capitulation. Her nails gouged the arm of her chair. "Traitors all," she hissed. Pycelle trembled. "Might I suggest, your grace, a parley? If you sued for terms." "Terms?" Her voice cracked like a lash. "Stannis will show us Stag's justice. Traitors' heads on spikes. I will not go meekly to his chopping block." She rose, skirts swirling like storm clouds, and beckoned Ser Island Pain. The mute headsman followed, sword naked. Cersei's gaze settled on Sansa Stark, just ushered inside by Lancel's escort. "Little dove," she purred, "sing us a song of northern honor. Tell me, does your brother still style himself king in the north?" Sansa stiffened, feeling the eyes of the court upon her. "My brother Robb fights to free father's bones, your grace." "His bones will be all that remain if Stannis rules," the queen said. She turned to Pain. "Should Stannis breach the holdfast, start with the girl. Better to rob the stag of prizes." Sansa's knees weakened, yet even fear found no words. At the Lion Gate, Stannis himself strode through smoke, sword red to the hilt. Behind him marched soldiers of Storm's End, Dragonstone, and the Reach Lords who had cast aside Tyrell rose to don Florent Marge. Corpses of gold cloaks littered the square. Small folk knelt in the doorways, some cheering, some weeping. Stannis's voice thundered, unyielding. "Citizens of King's Landing, be at peace. I claim no vengeance against the innocent. Yield your blades and you shall be spared. Resist, and justice shall be swift." A ragged cheer rose. The smell of burnt linen and blood mingled with dawn's river breeze. Davos arrived breathless. "My king, the great September is yours." The docks secured. Half the Lannister fleet burns behind us. The gold cloaks are shattered. Some rally at the Red Keep, but most have fled. Stannis nodded once. "Then only the keep remains." He surveyed the crimson fortress perched atop Aegon's hill. "Davos, take Imri and break the dragon gate from within. I will march the main host up the Street of Steel. We take Maegor's holdfast before sunset. And if Lord Tyrion sues for truce?" "Truce." Stannis's mouth twisted. "Tyrion shall bend the knee and beg mercy for his sister's spawn. If he does so, the dwarf may keep his head. If not, Ser Axel's pikes will suffice." A shiver traced Davos's spine. Mercy at Stannis's leave could be thinner than gruel. As the Storm Lords formed ranks, Melisandre passed among them, whispering blessings. To each she pressed a kiss of fire upon brow or blade, leaving soot-smudged sigils of R'hllor. Men shivered as if her lips seared frozen steel. She came at last to Stannis, lifted her red-gloved hand, and placed it upon his crownless helm. "Shadow and flame walk with you, your grace," she murmured. "Trust in the Lord's light. Darkness will break upon it like waves upon Dragonstone." Stannis gazed upon the Red Keep. Tonight, the Iron Throne will blaze bright indeed. Tyrion reached the foot of Aegon's hill with a ragged knot of loyal halberdiers. They hauled their wounded, bolsters improvised from shield straps. Behind them roared the tumult of a city in seizure. Smoke mushroomed, bells clamored, and distant horns sounded Stannis' advance. Tyrion's feet dragged. He tasted bile, blood, and the bitter thrill of survival. Bywater caught his elbow. "My lord, we can hold the stair to the gate of the gods. If the hand commands it." "The hand commands survival," Tyrion croaked. "Inside, Ser. Fortify Maegor's holdfast. If the queen has half a wit today, she is already whetting siege crossbows." They reeled through the barbican into the Red Keep courtyard, iron-bound gates slamming behind. Tyrion sagged against a wall, vision swimming. He felt each heartbeat as lightning in his chest. In that moment he admitted truth. Stannis Baratheon was winning. Yet a mind like Tyrion's never surrendered to despair long. He remembered wildfire still stored in the vaults beneath the Guildhall of Alchemists. True, no casks lined the river, but within the keep's tunnels, and beneath the dragon pit's shattered dome, rested enough pyromancer's heritage to ignite 1,000 ships. What if, he wondered, they wielded that fire within the keep, sealed corridors aflame behind them as they retreated deeper? Better to burn stone than bow to Stannis. Still, the Mad King's folly echoed in his ear. Would he become the kinslayer of a city? He staggered toward the Tower of the Hand, thoughts churning. Crossing the bridge to Maegor's Holdfast, he met Varys, silk slipper whispering across red tile. "Lord Hand," the eunuch purred, "I fear the hour grows late to salvage our cause. The Queen prepares a final redoubt with those she deems loyal. Does that list include me?" "I could not say." Varys's smile was a mask. "I come to inform you." A small galley flies Lord Tywin's banner up the Rose Road. The messenger claims the lion host has broken the young wolf at Ashmark and rides eastward. 2 days, perhaps 3, and your Lord Father stands at the gates. Tyrion's laugh burst ragged. 3 days may see us all headless. Desperate hours birth desperate deeds, Varys murmured. Perhaps a parley? If Stannis were offered hostages, the boy king, the queen mother, he might stay his hand until Tywin arrives. Offer my sister's head? She'd sooner give him mine. Tyrion's grin turned feral. Still, hostages may buy time. He limped on, mind aflame with schemes. Even victory's shadow left him plodding. A lion's cub fought until stone dust filled its lungs. By mid-morning, Stannis's banners advanced along the street of steel. Windows bristled with curious faces. Some threw down flowers, others chamber pots. The king's crimson surcoat darkened with soot where embers drifted from nearby fires, but his stride never faltered. At the base of Aegon's hill he halted, troops fanning at his back. Before him loomed the Gate of the Gods, its red iron jaws closed, its portcullis glittering with spear points. From atop the wall a single figure stepped forward, small, bowed, cloak whipping in the breeze. Tyrion Lannister raised a hand. "I would parley." His voice carried faintly. "King to hand." Stannis studied him. "Where is your king?" "Inside, polishing his crown," Tyrion called. "And packing it, I imagine. He likes pretty boxes." Mocking laughter rippled among the Stormlords. Stannis lifted gauntlet for silence. "Speak, imp of Lannister. I propose safe escort for the Queen and her children to Oldtown. They surrender their claim, pledge fealty, and you ascend the throne unopposed." Tyrion gestured to the battered gate. "If you storm this keep, your men will die in thousands. Wildfire yet lies beneath these stones." Stannis's brows knit. "Spare me craven threats. If wildfire be here, unleash it now and burn with your city." "Not my city," Tyrion said, "nor yours until you hold it unmarred. Victory tastes sweeter without ash between your teeth." Davos watched from Stannis's right flank, breath hushed. Perhaps the dwarf's bargain had merit. A peaceful surrender spared lives. But he saw the flare in Melisandre's dark eyes as she stepped forward. "The false queen suckles demon spawn," the red woman cried. "Her holdfast teems with shadows. No negotiation with darkness." Stannis's jaw flexed. He raised his sword, the blade gleaming dull red in morning light. "Your terms offend honor, dwarf. I offer you mercy. Open the gate, and no man within shall be harmed save those who resist. The queen shall be judged by law when dawn comes again." Tyrion bowed, sinuous as a cat. "Then we await you with open arms and loaded crossbows." He vanished behind the battlements. Stannis lowered his sword. "Bring up the scorpions. We breach by noon." Siege engines creaked forward. Stone shot shattered against red iron, sparks flying. Archers loosed shafts in shimmering arcs. The Gate of the Gods rang like a titan's gong. On the parapets, Lannister crossbows replied, quarrels humming death. Between arrows Davos glimpsed a boy king's gilded helm, rocking uncertain above the battlement. He wondered if Joffrey truly understood how tenuous a crown could be. Within Maegor's holdfast, Sansa heard the thunder of war pound ever nearer. Cersei had gathered the court ladies in the Queen's ballroom, a vaulted chamber hung with Myrish tapestries. The Queen paced the dais, hands white upon the silver stem of her goblet. Noon sunlight slanted through high windows, painting the hall in bloody stripes. "Do you hear them?" she hissed. "Stannis' savages hammering at my gate. They think to mount my son's head on the walls." Her gaze swept the room. "Better Kingsguard steel end his life than Baratheon rope." Murmurs rose, shock, horror. Sansa felt her pulse throb in her throat. Could any mother slay her child rather than yield him? Yet Cersei's emerald eyes glinted with an edge beyond reason. Ser Island Payne stood silently by the door, sword in hand, face a mask of death. In the hush, Sansa heard the faint whimper of Tommen, hidden with maids behind tapestry. Small hands clutched to ears. Sansa's spirit stirred. She could not watch innocence chained to Cersei's spiral of doom. Stepping forward, she knelt. "Your Grace," her voice trembled yet rang clear. "Let the little ones be sent to the September. The gods will guard them." Cersei halted. "Will they?" She stalked down the dais, goblet sloshing red wine. "You put much faith in gods that did not save your father." Sansa flinched. Still she held the Queen's gaze. "Please, Your Grace." Before Cersei could reply, the very stones beneath them shuddered. A rumble thundered through the holdfast. Ladies shrieked. Plastered dust cascaded from the ceiling. The gate of the gods had cracked. Outside, Stannis watched masonry splinter. A final boulder struck iron. The portcullis buckled. With a roar of triumph, the king raised his sword. "Forward! Storm the gate in the Lord's name." Ranks of stormlords advanced, shields locked, spears angled to the sky. Tyrion saw them through mismatched arrow slits inside the Barbican throat. He felt awe at their discipline, black as a seawall surging upon shore. He also felt dread. His makeshift garrison could not stand such force. Yet cunning remained. He barked quick orders to ignite casks of lamp oil poured down murder holes. Flames billowed, and Stannis' first ranks recoiled a breath, just long enough for Tyrion to tug a lever. The unfinished boom chain, anchored to the east bank though not across the river, had been wound through gears beneath the gatehouse as counterweight for a second portcullis. With a clatter of iron, that chain crashed to the ground across the throat, piling knee-high. Stannis' front ladder carriers stumbled over the wreckage. The charge faltered, yet only for a moment. Davos cried, "Axes up front!" Men hacked at the chain even as arrows showered them. Soon the way cleared, and the storm rolled on. Within the courtyard of the Red Keep, Lannister men prepared last defense. Scorpions loaded, archers arrayed. Tyrion, bleeding from a split brow, took a place beside Ser Balon's swan under the shadow of the Tower of the Hand. He had never seen the keep's marble steps so stark, each veined stairway a potential killing ground. Behind them, pyromancer Haleen waited with 4 apprentices, each clutching a clay jar swirled green. At Tyrion's nod, they would hurl demon fire among the foe. The gate burst inward. Sunlight streamed through smoke to fall upon ruby enamel of Stannis' breastplate. He strode alone across the threshold, sword bright, face grim as judgment. Behind him marched a shield wall of Florent and Morrigan men, standards crackling overhead. Tyrion lifted a hand. "Haleen," he rasped. "Now!" Green fire blossomed. Jars shattering, wildfire spewed liquid emerald across the courtyard, flames roaring hotter than forge. 3 stormlords vanished in sheets of emerald. But Stannis himself leapt aside, cloak aflame, rolling to smother the tongues. He rose smoking, eyes blazing hotter than the fire itself, and bellowed a war cry. His men rallied. Buckets of sand smothered the burning gate arch. More stormlords poured through, leaping charred corpses. The battle for the Red Keep raged. Hour upon hour steel rang on steel. Screams echoed off marble. Fire roared from shattered alchemist jars. Tyrion fought as a demon, darting beneath shields, lunging at gaps. Twice he fell, twice he rose, blood-soaking surcoat. By sunset, The outer yard ran with red and green rivulets. Inside Maegor's holdfast, the queen's court heard the slaughter draw nigh, boots thundering, shields banging, death's drum. Cersei clenched goblet tight until silver bent. She turned to Ser Island Pain. When they breach these doors, do it quick. Her eyes flickered to Joffrey, pale and trembling. And start with him. Tears glazed Joffrey's eyes. Mother! But before Pain could move, the doors burst inward. Not Stannis' men, but Tyrion Lannister stumbled in, helm askew, blood mask upon his face. He gripped a broken spear shaft. "Hold!" he croaked. "The keep is lost. We must yield." Cersei's shock froze into fury. Yield? The lion does not yield. The lion's den burns, Tyrion rasped. Stannis holds every gate. Our men throw down swords. Father is days away. Choose now. Surrender the boy, or see him fall to Ser Island's sword this instant. Cersei's face blanched corpse white. She opened her mouth, no words. Her goblet clanged as it hit the floor. Tyrion turned to Lancel. "Take the king's standard. Go to the Barbican. Show white cloth and announce Queen Cersei will treat for ransom. Go!" Lancel hesitated, then obeyed. Silence drowned the chamber. Joffrey sobbed, clutching Sansa's arm. Cersei sank to her knees, breath ragged. Island Pain lowered his blade. Night fell upon King's Landing to find torches flickering from the towers of the Red Keep, but not Lannister crimson. Upon the highest battlement rose the crowned stag within a heart aflame. Beneath it fluttered a white banner of surrender. Stannis Baratheon stood amidst the broken stones of the throne room, steps away from the Iron Throne itself. Blood-slick boot prints marred the mosaic floor. Yet the throne, forged from 1,000 defeated blades, shone unclaimed. Stannis' gaze rested upon it, half yearning, half wary. Melisandre stepped into the pool of torchlight. "The Lord of Light delivers, your grace. The city is yours." Stannis' sword tip touched stone. "It is won, not yet ruled." He looked to Davos beside him, a smuggler now master of ships and King's Hand. "Fetch me Grand Maester Pycelle. We will write terms of surrender. The Lannister children are to be confined, unharmed, until lawful judgment. The Queen will stand trial." Davos inclined his head, exhaustion weighing his smile. "As you command." Stannis sheathed his sword. He took the first step toward the Iron Throne. Steel rasped, leather creaked. The hall waited, breathless. He set foot upon the throne's base, but paused. Eyes closed, he seemed to listen. Davos heard nothing but distant crackle of torches. At last Stannis spoke, voice low, rough. "I will sit when justice sits with me. Call the lords, the septon, the people. At dawn I shall take the throne before them all, and swear a king's vow to rule in truth." Melisandre's smile glimmered like coals. "The dawn shall blaze bright indeed." Outside, as midnight bells tolled, small folk crept from hiding. Fires guttered, smoke coiled to the stars, but battle's thunder had stilled. Some wept, some sang. They saw new banners, new soldiers. They saw blood, corpses of gold cloaks and storm lords mingled. But they saw no dragon's fire, no green doom. For good or ill, a new king ruled King's Landing. And high above, perched upon the balustrade of a soot-dark tower, a lone raven spread midnight wings and leapt into the night, bearing word to every kingdom. The stag had taken the lion's den before wildfire could kindle, and the realm would burn or bloom by Stannis' stern decree. The first flush of dawn seeped through the shattered clerestories of the throne room like pale wine, staining sword-nicked marble with bruised rose. Torches guttered where they had burned all night, their exhausted flames bowing before the oncoming sun. Outside the Red Keep a tense hush hung over King's Landing, broken only by the fitful crackle of dying fires and the distant flap of new banners unfurling from towers that had once blazed with crimson lions. Now a crowned stag blazing inside a fiery heart climbed every mast and parapet, each surge of cloth a silent proclamation that the city, if not yet the realm, belonged to Stannis Baratheon. He stood alone before the Iron Throne's looming spines, mailhood thrown back, face drawn by fatigue and blackened by smoke. His left gauntlet rested on a sheathed sword. His right curled into a fist around nothing at all, knuckles white with the same implacable fury that had driven him across fire and steel to reach this hall. Yet he would not sit, not yet. Dawn's light was witness enough for Davos Seaworth, who watched from the base of the dais while pyromancers carried off the last smoldering shards of wildfire glass. The hands' robes were stained with ash and drying blood, but the air smelled cleaner now that green flames lay quenched beneath heaps of sand. A raven cawed somewhere in the vaults above, its echo skipping across iron blades like a stone over water. Stannis raised his head as if the sound touched a nerve, then nodded once to Davos. The gesture might have passed for gratitude from a less rigid man, but Davos knew it as permission to begin. He strode forward, Boothiel's ringing, and beckoned the High Septon, who waddled up the long alley of broken benches, cradling the seven-pointed crystal of his office with trembling hands. Florent men and Stormlanders pressed closer along the walls, rigid with pride. Smattering among them were stripped and battered goldcloaks forced to bear witness in silence. By the grace of the Seven, the Septon intoned, voice quavering across ruin. "I, not yet," Stannis said, and his interruption cracked like a whip. "Where are the captives?" At a cue, axemen hauled open the side doors. Cersei Lannister swept in first on slippered feet, white as frost, green eyes as sharp as broken glass. Her wrists gleamed with silver chains. She wore a gown of black velvet sewn with golden lions, torn at one sleeve and powdered with dust. Joffrey shambled behind her, lips still swollen from sobbing, hair matted with sweat. Ser Island Payne and Ser Marentrant flanked them in manacles of their own, and Tommen clutched a Septa's hand, blinking up at dagger-bright swords with terror almost too large for his little limbs. To Davos it seemed a mercy that Myrcella was still safe in Dornish exile, blissfully unaware of the price her blood would soon command. Stannis watched without expression as the former queen and her brood were arranged near the dais. "Kneel," he said. Cersei's chin rose a fraction. "I will kneel to no thief." Ser Axel Florent moved as if to club her down, but Stannis lifted a finger and Axel froze. "You stand accused of treason, adultery, and the murder of King Robert Baratheon. You will kneel before his rightful heir or you will be thrown to your knees. Choose." Silence rippled outward, met by the low shuffle of mailed feet. For a heartbeat Cersei's face twisted, some venomous retort half-formed on her tongue, but Joffrey's hand tightened painfully around her own. His eyes were wide and pleading as a beaten dog's. She inhaled and, with deliberate grace, lowered herself until her knees kissed stone. Joffrey followed, quivering. Tommen sank too, sniffling aloud. The clink of chains echoed like bells for the dead. Only then did Stannis turn back to the Septon. "Proceed." The fat priest licked dry lips. "In the sight of the father who judges, the mother who nurtures, the warrior who defends, the maiden who inspires, the smith who labors, the crone who guides, and the stranger who waits for us all, I do hereby acknowledge Stannis of House Baratheon, first of his name, trueborn brother of the late King Robert, as rightful lord of the Seven Kingdoms." "6," Tyrion Lannister muttered from a nearby pillar where 2 spearmen kept him under guard. One eye had swollen shut, but his wit clearly lived. The North and the Trident might have opinions. Davos shot him a warning glance. Stannis scarcely twitched. The Septon cleared his throat, eyes darting between captor and captive, and resumed the litany until each god had been named twice. With final words, he lifted his crystal, blessing the king before dawn's pale fire. Stannis inclined his head, receiving the benediction like a blow that must be endured rather than cherished. Melisandre watched from the shadow of a blackened window arch, scarlet silk bright against soot-gray stone. She neither clapped nor bowed but merely smiled, as though the entire ritual had been enacted for her amusement. When Davos turned away from the dais, he found her waiting at his elbow, eyes aglow with secrets. "He will sit when the sun clears the eastern tower," she said softly. "Light is strongest at that moment." Davos drew a breath of air that tasted of rust and smoke. "Your lady has dawned," my lady, but the realm is not won in one night. Nor lost, she replied, gaze drifting to Tyrion. That one threads chaos through every fate I see. Fire loves him. Fire would burn him if it had half a chance, Davos said. And yet, even ashes can birth a phoenix. She drifted away, red skirts whispering through. Dust. Outside the hall, gongs boomed from every quarter of the city, summoning small folk to the plaza before the Red Keep. Word had spread like spilled wine. The Queen Dowager in chains, the boy king toppled, a new dawn proclaimed. Bakers abandoned ovens, fishwives left stalls. Thieves scuttled from bolt holes clutching purses light as hollow bones. They gathered beneath smoking towers to glimpse history's turning, skeptical and restless. Some cheered the stag banners, cursing Lannister greed. Others shouted for bread or hid behind shutters, whispering that dragons of green fire would surely come again. Amid them stalked companies of Florent, Celtigar, and Valerian men, helms bright, spears upright, holding line between jubilation and riot. At the fish market, two boys fought over a fallen lion banner until an archer's arrow split the cloth. In Cobbler's Square, a priest of the poor fellows mounted a wine cask to preach that Stannis ruled by the Seven's blessing. The words had scarcely left his mouth before royal men-at-arms dragged him away for fear he might sow fresh heresies. The city simmered like a cauldron whose lid no one dared lift. Back within the keep, Tyrion dabbed swollen lips with the hem of a torn surcoat and considered his odds. Stannis had ordered him confined to the maiden vault for the day and would hear pleas for clemency after sitting the throne. A trial by combat was possible, yet who would champion him? Bronn had vanished sometime during the night, and the city watch answered new masters now. Podrick Payne had not been seen since the Barbican fell. Even if Ser Mandon Moore still breathed, no one expected him to cross swords on behalf of a beaten dwarf. Tyrion weighed suicide against surrender and chose instead the familiar refuge of intrigue. When the Florent guards escorted him toward his chamber, he pretended weakness, stumbled, and managed to whisper a single name to the second man on his chain. Simon. The guard recoiled as if struck. His sister served in that very brothel. Tyrion's smile, though bloodied, held the promise of gold and secrets. If one guard could be bought, another might be bribed. And if rumors of wildfire caches buried beneath Maegor's Hill were true, leverage still existed, dangerous, volatile, and perfect for a man with nothing left but wits. On the western horizon, a dust-brown smear announced riders, the vanguard of Tywin Lannister's army, thundering along the gold road beneath crimson pennons. Scouts raced ahead to taste the wind. What they smelled was defeat. Twice they met deserters, gaunt men in torn cloaks who wept of wildfire hell and gates in ruins. Near midday, the first riders reined up on a low ridge that afforded the city's full panorama. Banners of the crowned stag above every gate, smoke coils drifting from towers, and the king's standard blazing upon the September. One horseman peeled away to bear the tidings south toward the main host. The others dismounted to sharpen swords already black with despair. Tywin's war council convened under a stand of stunted oaks at twilight. The Lord of Casterly Rock listened tight-lipped as Ser Adam Marbrand sketched the disaster. Mudgate fallen without wildfire, the chain unfinished, the queen in chains, Tyrion captured but alive. Ser Kevin cursed softly, gazing east where King's Landing's lights twinkled seductively. Across the crude map, someone placed a stag token atop the Red Keep. Tywin's pale eyes flicked toward it, and for a moment all color seemed to drain from the landscape. "We ride at dawn," he said, voice cold. "If the gates are barred, we camp before them and starve the usurper out." "It is we who are the rebels now, my lord," Kevin murmured. Tywin's stare speared him. "Rebels do not sit upon the richest mines in the west, brother. Nor do they field 20,000 heavy horse. Nor do they hold the heir to Casterly Rock hostage," Marbrand added. Tywin's silence spoke volumes. Finally he said, "The city loves a victor only until its bellies go empty. Secure the Rose Road, cut their grain. Without bread, small folk will turn cloak thrice in a moon." His gauntlet closed around the stag token and squeezed until its antlers bent. Far to the north, ravens reached Riverrun and Winterfell, bearing tidings of the stag's triumph. At Riverrun, Edmure cursed the gods for not drowning Stannis in wildfire. At Winterfell, Queen Regent Catelyn Stark clasped Maester Luwin's hand, fearing for her daughters in the capital. Robb Stark, king in the north, stood beside the silent sister-wrapped bier of his slain bannerman Mark Piper. Maps spread beneath a weeping willow. He read the message thrice, mouth set in grim line. With Renly dead and Joffrey toppled, the game shifted again. The young wolf's amber gaze swept the blue winding course of the Trident. Somewhere beyond that river, Tywin gathered power while Stannis claimed a throne. Robb turned to his captains. Send envoys south. Stannis might recognize northern kingship in exchange for peace and his sister Shireen's hand to the phrase. His voice cracked on the last word. The price of victory had never weighed so heavy. At Dragonstone, a less welcome raven perched upon Princess Shireen's windowsill. Her mother Celis unfolded the vellum, eyes devouring each syllable. Triumph, it read, but also danger. Traitors abounded, the lion still roared outside the city. Celis pressed the parchment to her breast, cheeks flushed with fervor. Stannis had promised she and Shireen would join him once the throne was secure. Now that day drew near. She hurried to the chamber of the painted table where Maester Pylus tended letters. Her steps echoed upon hardened oak. Every chamber seemed too small to hold the joy she felt. Beyond the stone walls, Dragonstone's sea winds screamed, but within her heart burned warm red flame. Back in King's Landing, Ser Davos met Salladhor Saan beside the smoldering hulks at the quay. The Lysine captain surveyed charred planks and broken masts with the mournful eye of a man pricing salvage. "Half the Lion fleet gone," he said. "But in burning them we lost good ships ourselves. A pity the gold of King's Landing is locked inside that rock heap yonder." "And will be opened," Davos promised. "Once the vaults are tallied, the king shall honor every pact." Salladhor's grin glimmered beneath neat beard. "Pacts are wind, friend Davos. Gold is anchor." Yet he clapped the smuggler on the shoulder in grudging camaraderie. "Keep the Red Woman away from my hulls, and we shall be merry yet." Word of Stannis's impending coronation drew throngs to the plaza at dawn. Small folk pressed shoulder to shoulder, stepping over broken cobbles where yesterday's corpses had been hauled away. Spearmen stood 6 ranks deep, shields bright beneath fresh oil, halberds crossing overhead to form a living tunnel from the keep's gate to a raised platform near the base of Aegon's high hill. There, beneath a canopy of black sailcloth, the high septon waited with chalice and crown. The crown itself gleamed new-forged, simple circlet of beaten steel studded by stag antlers wrought from pallid bone. Its austerity seemed fitting for a king who scorned all ostentation save the unyielding splendor of law. To the left of the dais Melisandre held a brazier atop which coiled a single flickering tongue of ruby flame. Beside her stood Maester Cressen's replacement, Maester Pylus, ducking beneath the brim of his maester's chain, wary of the Red Woman's smile. Farther off, Davos arranged prisoners. Joffrey, Cersei, Tommen, silent and sullen, all under heavy watch. Tyrion was absent, locked somewhere behind Premier Stone, though Davos suspected the dwarf's wiles were not confined by iron. The coronation unfolded slowly, each rite measured. Stannis emerged in a plain cloak of midnight blue. He knelt before the septon, accepted sacred oils, swore 8 oaths, to gods, to realm, to law, to justice, more than any king before him. When at last the crown settled on his brow, a hush rippled the plaza, broken by Melisandre's cry, "Behold the Lightbringer King! Let darkness tremble!" Echoes shivered along alley walls, and then cheering, uncertain at first, then swelling as Goldcloak's newly sworn banged spears against shields and Stormlanders' raised throats. Yet beyond the second ring of soldiers, the roar fragmented into pockets of sullen silence where Lannister sympathies lingered. None dared defy the blades, but many eyes watched with wary longing for golden banners that no longer flew. Stannis lifted both hands, still kneeling, and bowed his head while the septon anointed him a final time. He rose slowly, turned to face the crowd, and spoke without amplification. Yet his voice carried, I swear by the Seven and by the Lord of Light to serve justice to high and low, to protect the realm from enemies without and rot within. I will keep faith with those who keep faith with the crown, and meet law to those who break it. Let none say I sought this burden out of hunger for power. Power I have tasted, and it is bitter on the tongue. Only duty is sweet. Some cheered at that. Others muttered. Davos could see questions flickering like candle shadows across faces. Would bread be cheaper? Would taxes rise? Would the gold cloaks raid homes at night? In the crowd's restless shiver lay the truth that King's Landing loved no ruler long. That afternoon in the Queen's ballroom, redubbed Crown Hall until a better name could be chosen, Stannis convened a narrow council. Davos, Melisandre, Lord Valerion, Ser Axel, Ser Imry, and the Maester. More chairs stood empty than filled, eerily reminiscent of the usurped small council chamber. They sat around a map of Westeros pinned beneath iron daggers. Pins marked Tywin's army west of the Rose Road, Robb Stark near the Trident, Balon Greyjoy raiding Stony Shore, and Mace Tyrell encamped south at Bitterbridge with his 1,000 banners still undecided. We hold the capital, but not the countryside, Stannis said, voice hoarse. Food stocks are low, coffers lean. Casterly Rock's mines supply half the crown's coin. The reach the rest of our grain. We must not fight 3 wars at once. Lord Valerion drummed fingers. The lion will roar first. Your Grace, let me sail upriver. Blockade the gold road from the sea. Cut their supply lines. Do so, Stannis agreed. Davos, you will oversee repair of the chain. Next time we fight on water, the trap will close. Davos inclined his head. As the king commands.
Ser Axel Brisel.
We should string Cersei from the walls and toss her cubs to the Trident. Let their heads rot under the lion banner. The West will falter. No, Melisandre said, smiling thinly. Blood of kings is too great a power to be wasted on carrion birds. Axel glared. The common folk hunger for vengeance. But the realm hungers for peace, Davos countered. Spilling children's blood sows only endless vendetta. Stannis' jaw tightened. The children live. The mother faces trial at Moon's turn. Let the law speak. If we claim to rule by justice, we cannot begin with murder. Melisandre's eyes smoldered. Justice may yet demand a higher price than your grace imagines. Shadows lengthen toward storm. Storm or calm, the law stands, Stannis replied. And in that phrase Davos heard a cord of iron that would not bend even in sacrifice. That evening Davos visited the dungeons where Tyrion Lannister was kept. The guards admitted him grudgingly. Rumor claimed the dwarf had already bribed 4 sentries into carrying letters. Torchlight revealed Tyrion seated cross-legged on a pallet, quill in hand, scribbling lines of verse across a tattered ledger. He looked up, mismatched eyes gleaming.
Ah, Onion Knight.
Come to sample vintage Lannister wine? I fear the cask is cracked, though the wit holds strong. Davos folded arms. You were hand once, my lord. Hands mend broken things. Hands also get cut off, Tyrion said, flexing fingers. I trust Stannis has not yet sharpened the saw? He waits upon trial. Swear fealty, you might serve again. Tyrion laughed, winced, and spat blood. Serve? A Baratheon who worships red shadows? I was born to lions, sire, not stags. My loyalty lies with gold, and gold is portable. Still, he tapped the ledger. I draft a proposal. Your lord might gain much by accepting. Walk with me. Their conversation stretched 2 hours. Davos left with head spinning and a folded parchment sealed in wine-stained wax. It promised the location of 3 major wildfire caches, half the remaining royal treasury, and the designs for the Scorpion ballista Tyrion had commissioned, if Stannis would free Sansa Stark and guarantee Tyrion safe exile to Pentos. It was expensive, cowardly, and cunning. Davos felt the matter weighed against his conscience like a stone. Yet the city needed coin, and wildfire must be found before accident brewed new hell. Stannis heard the offer in silence. At last he said, "Fetch the girl first. The dwarf can wait upon the outcome. My patience does not." The next morning, Sansa Stark knelt trembling before the new king. Her hair was unbraided, her dress simple green linen, cheeks blotched with tears yet eyes steady. Stannis listened as she begged mercy for the small folk who still starved, for orphan boys pressed into watch duty, for caskers flogged by Florent men seeking bribes. Davos watched astonishment flicker across stern Baratheon features. When she finished, Stannis dismissed every lord but Davos, then sat heavily on an unpolished bench. "She is a child," he muttered. "A child sees more needful truths than a hall full of lords. We rule empty bellies. Send wagons to the riverlands. Grain, onions, salt fish. Distribute at cost of 1 copper a loaf. If the lords of the Reach will not sell, we take. Draft a decree." Davos bowed. "She will be grateful, sire." Stannis's lips moved, almost a smile.
No.
"She will be fed. Gratitude is a feast for fools." In Bitterbridge, where Tyrell banners snapped over fields awash in summer clover, Lady Olenna Redwine received raven scrolls and snorted. Stannis? On the throne, as likely as Mace winning a duel of wits. Yet news of Lannister defeat unsettled her. Alliances shifted with the wind, and gardens flourished only beneath careful pruning. She summoned her granddaughter Marjorie, dismissing seamstresses fussing over silk gowns. "Child," she said, "we may need to weed new ground. Steal your smiles." Robb Stark's envoy arrived 2 days later in the form of Galbart Glover's nephew, a lanky youth who bowed too stiffly. He relayed Robb's terms: mutual recognition, safe passage for northern merchants, daughters of northern lords invited to court as ladies in waiting. Stannis considered, finger-tapping the hilt of Lightbringer, the sword he had yet to ignite in truth. "The North broke faith first," he mused aloud to Davos. "Yet my duty is south. If peace there frees swords here, wisdom says yes." And so he counteroffered, recognition in exchange for 10,000 barrels of northern grain and the immediate return of storm-born captives. The raven flew north. Winterfell's maester cracked the seal beneath gray skies. Queen Regent Catelyn sighed relief to read Sansa and Arya's names among the promised souls. Arya, still missing, was included at Davos's insistence and Sansa's whispered plea. Robb nodded curt approval, though worry shadowed his gaze. Peace bought with grain might starve his own host come winter. The War Council murmured of secret harvests beyond the wall. Warmer summers lengthened, but wolves grew leaner. Duty weighed heavy on every realm. Night gathered outside King's Landing, soft and humid. From the balcony of the Tower of the Hand, Melisandre watched torch trails wink along the Rose Road where Lannister outriders probed. In her copper mirror flames licked glass, and from the patterns she divined both victory and doom. A shadow shaped like a lion melted before a stag's antlers, but behind the stag rose a crown of ice. She closed her eyes, breathing deep. "Lightbringer," she whispered, "is yet to blaze." Somewhere in the river breeze came distant wings, as if ravens multiplied without number. Far below, Stannis walked alone among the ashes of the court's gardens, hands clasped behind back, gaze fixed on charred trellises once bursting with summer roses. Fireflies drifted like lost souls. He paused before a blackened statue of Aerys Targaryen toppled years ago, decapitated yet still reaching skyward in madness. Stannis stared a long while, then turned toward the sound of approaching bootsteps. Davos bowed. "Tywin's outriders skirt our patrols. They test walls nightly." "Let them test," Stannis said. "Steel grows dull on stone." He glanced toward the distant gatehouses where fresh catapults took shape under Valerian engineers. "Tomorrow we ride inspection. I would see every hit of land between the Rose Road and the Blackwater marked and measured. Bastions here, towers there. A wall of men may fail. Stone endures." Davos risked a smile. "As your grace endures." Stannis did not answer. His gaze traced embers glowing faint along the scorched palace roof. Above the city's ragged skyline, the red comet still burned from weeks past, though thinner now, like a sword of fading fire. Many called it omen of dragons, others a herald of Stannis himself. He wondered which prophecy weighed heavier, the priestess's visions of darkness in the north or the peasant prayers for cheaper bread. Perhaps both were true, and the king's crowning led only deeper into shadow. The stone drum of Dragonstone boomed thrice at midnight as Lord Tywin's first siege engines arrived. Towering rams crowned in iron, oxen snorting plumes in lantern glow. But when the dawn patrol found them parked half-finished on a bluff a mile from the Lion Gate, their crews slaughtered, the king suspected sabotage from within Lannister lines. In truth, brigands from the Kingswood, emboldened by King's Landing's downfall, had ambushed the engineers for tools and food, melting back into dark pines. Anarchy sprouted where order cracked, and gardens of blood blossomed in the realm's neglected corners. Melisandre dreamed of those gardens. Roots tangled around bones, blossoms fed on tears. She woke before sunrise, heart hammering. In her chamber, she commanded 2 acolytes to fetch leeches and a brazier. Into the coals she whispered 3 names: Tywin, Balon, Robb. A leech for each, swelling with her own king's blood drawn from Stannis' arm while he slept. Davos, summoned, watched uneasily. Old memories of the boy Edric Storm, of blood and leeches kissed by flames, stirred like ghosts. The acolytes cast the bloated leeches into fire, and sparks spiraled up the chimney throat. Melisandre's voice followed, low and fierce. One night falls for the dawn of new kingdom. Light and blood will bind. Davos stepped forward. My lady, we need ships and grain more than sorcery. Ships burn, grain rots, she murmured. Blood and fire endure. She placed a hand on his chest, over the pounding heart. You fear, yet truth is born in fear's shadow. Watch the road 3 days hence. 3 days later, thunder split the afternoon sky over the Rose Road. The air smelled of copper before a single drop of rain fell. Lannister outriders spurred horses hard across slick flats, but a sudden churned quagmire sucked hooves to fetlock, tossing men beneath their own rearing mounts. Some drowned in mire, others broke bones, and in the confusion Stormlander horsemen poured from hedgerows, spears driving home. A small victory, but tales rushed ahead of fleeing survivors. The ground itself rises against the lion. Rumor crowned Stannis a warlock king wielding storms. At Tyrion's cell, Davos delivered news of the grain decree and wildfire caches discovered, thanks to Tyrion's directions, beneath the dragon pit's crumbled vaults. In return, Davos handed over a sealed royal pardon permitting Tyrion passage to Pentos once the hostage exchange concluded. The dwarf read the parchment thrice, chuckling. I shall miss your city's perfumes, he said. Pig's hit, jasmine, and treachery, irresistible blend. Remember this smell, Davos said, for you may yet breathe it again. Tyrion's eyebrow rose. Do you foresee my triumphant return? I foresee nothing, Davos replied, but the wheel turns and blood is stubborn. Better you find peace across the sea than ride the wheel beneath it. On the final night of that uneasy fortnight, Stannis stood upon the parapet of the Tower of the Hand, newly rechristened Tower of Justice, and watched lightning fork above distant Storm's End. He felt history yawning beneath his boots, unfathomable, immense. Somewhere beyond those boiling clouds lay winter's frozen maw, dragons of old songs, and White Walker's mothers used to frighten babes. Yet his realm's peril seemed nearer, coiled within stone walls where hungry hearts whispered in shadows. He heard Davos's boots long before the hand spoke. The city settles, sire. Grain wagons roll from the crownlands. The fleet repairs go well. Good, Stannis said, not turning. And the lion? Tywin encamps 3 leagues west along the Gold Road. Scouts report trenches and palisades. He waits. For what? A mistake, Davos answered. Or an ally. Stannis' shoulders lifted in a slow, weary sigh. Then we shall give him neither. He faced the hand at last, blue eyes glinting in stormlight. Summon the captain of the walls at first light. I want every turret manned, every pot of pitch hoisted. If Lord Tywin grows impatient, let him taste storm and stone. Meanwhile you will sail to Gulltown. The errand boy owes me fealty. Remind them gently. We need the Vale's grain for winter. Davos nodded. As you command. Lightning flared again. In its white glare, the antler crown threw spidery bars across the king's brow, shadowy jailer to the mind beneath. Rain spat upon parapet stones. Stannis lifted his face, letting droplets streak ash across cheekbones still smeared with soot from wildfire days old. Tell the realm, he said softly, that the king stands watch. When Davos had gone, Melisandre emerged from the stair, cloak clinging wetly to crimson silk. She moved to Stannis' side without sound. Together they stared into the tempests building above the Blackwater's mouth. After a long while she spoke, voice like wind across coals. The night grows deep, your grace, and colder. Fire alone will warm the world. Stannis' gaze held the storm. Then we shall feed it what it needs, but never more than justice allows. Thunder answered, rolling over ramparts like drums of doom. In the hush that followed, Melisandre laid her palm upon the parapet, feeling stone pulse with life or memory. Somewhere down in the labyrinth of ancient rock, a spark of green fire guttered, imprisoned by fresh iron cages, waiting. Farther off, in the hearts of men and women crowding candlelit alleys, sparks of anger, hope, or despair flamed unseen. King and priestess watched, silent, while rain washed charred rose petals from the garden paths below and sent them swirling into gutters, red upon black upon silver. Above, the comet faded still, though now at its sight some whispered not of dragons but of stags' horns crowned in crimson halos. And beyond the shivering dark that cloaked the seven kingdoms, winter's first cold breath crept ever south, unnoticed, relentless, a promise older than thrones or crowns or wildfire, older even than dawn. PGSQL. Rain drummed on the shuttered casements of the Tower of Justice until it seemed the whole red hill might wash away into the Blackwater. The night felt new-forged, sharp, metallic, smelling of wet stone and distant smoke. In a narrow chamber 3 stories below the king's private solar, Maester Pylus bent over a sea-washed table strewn with raven's feathers and broken seals, struggling to keep the parchment beneath his quill from curling in the damp. Another bird waited on the perch beside him, silver eyes reflecting candle glow like chips of frost. Each letter he finished carried hard news north, east, or west, stitching Stannis Baratheon's fragile claim into a patchwork cloak of promises and demands. A soft scuff of leather broke his concentration. Ser Davos Seaworth slipped through the door, rainwater dripping from the hood of his plain gray cloak. He smelled of salt and tar. The fleet repairs kept him long upon the docks even after sunset. Pylus set quill aside, rubbing stiff fingers. "How many more, Maester?" Davos asked, voice roughened by a day barking orders. 70 this night alone. Highgarden, the Eyrie, Riverrun, White Harbor, Pike, even Norvos and Bravos. Pylus flexed aching knuckles. The ink is scarcely dry before new tidings arrive to change the words. Tidings blacker than ink? Davos unpinned the cloak and slung it over a chair. Water pooled on the stone. Lord Tywin has driven broken men from the Gold Road like wolves from a fold. Each survivor swears the Lannisters bring up siege towers. So the ravens say. Pylus offered a tired smile. Yet last hour another bird came from the Stormlands. Ser Rolandstrom has beaten back Ironborn raiders along the Rainwood. That is one front quieted. A small blessing, Davos allowed. He reached for the nearest parchment, reading by guttering candle. Lord Tarly of Horn Hill proposes safe passage for winter grain if King Stannis recognizes Samwell Tarly's claim to the Night's Watch lands his father donated. That seems convenient. Randall Tarly loves bargains won at sword point, the Maester said. Yet grain we need, and his harvest is heavy. Davos folded the letter. The king will decide. Where is he now? With Lady Melisandre, high atop the eastern rampart. They watched the storm. The Maester hesitated. She asked for leeches again. 3 more. I fear. I know what she does with them. Davos's mouth tasted of iron. Pray she casts no leech in my name. He left the chamber, boots slapping wet corridors, and climbed a turret stair spiraling ever upward until wind howled round the final landing. There he found Stannis under a swaying lantern, cloak plastered to mail, gaunt face lit by green spiders of wildfire lamps far below. Melisandre stood a pace behind, her scarlet silks clinging like a second skin, hair streaming rain and embers. "Your Grace," Davos called above the gale. "The fleet reports 5 seaworthy Dromons in fighting trim. Tomorrow we test the chain again at slack tide." Stannis kept his gaze on the lightning-torn western horizon. "Tomorrow," he said, as though the word were a blade between his teeth. "And the day after that, until Tywin dares more than camping in mud." "Mud breeds sickness," Davos said. "His host cannot lie there forever." "Forever is not required," Melisandre murmured. Rain beaded on her cheeks like dark rubies. "Only long enough for shadow to do its work." Stannis flinched, barely. "We have cast enough shadows." Davos braved a step nearer. "Sire, leeches bleed less than men. If blood must pay, better theirs than ours. Men will bleed regardless." The king's voice carried bleak certainty. He turned at last, face carved from cold basalt. "Lord Tywin seeks parley. He sends Ser Adam Marbrand at first light. You will stand beside me, Davos. And you, my lady." Melisandre inclined her head. "The flames will guide your tongue." Dawn Grey and Raw found the gate of the gods thrown wide for the first time since its capture. Stannis took his place beneath a plain banner, crowned stag and fiery heart stitched upon unbleached wool, while a double line of Stormlander spearmen flanked the roadway. Behind him rose the scorched mass of King's Landing, windows like countless eyes still bruised from nights of fire. Before him stretched the muddy causeway where Ser Adam Marbrand approached, crimson cloak trailing, helm tucked beneath one arm. Rain had ceased but left the world awash in puddles that mirrored sky and spearpoint alike. Davos noted every detail: the equal number of Lannister outriders, the wary glances at Scorpion crews manning towers overhead, the way Marbrand's destrier sidestepped when it scented Lion Gate's lingering smoke. Ser Adam dismounted 10 yards distant, spurs jingling. He bowed stiffly. "Your Grace, I come on behalf of Lord Tywin Lannister, Warden of the West." "Speak," Stannis said. "Lord Tywin bids you recall that your war is with Queen Cersei's treacherous brood, not the West entire. He offers terms." Marbrand produced a sealed scroll. "Release her Grace the Dowager Queen and the King's children to his custody, along with your brother's daughters, and Casterly Rock will withdraw its host and recognize your sovereignty in perpetuity." A murmur rippled among the Stormlords. Stannis' stare never flickered. Perpetuity, a word for priests and poets. How long is that to a lion? Marbrand's mustache twitched. "For as long as honor binds, your Grace." Lannister honor bound them to crown an incest-born whelp and hunt the hand of the king in the dead of night. Stannis gestured toward the city behind him. "This is what honor breeds." "Heavy words," Marbrand said. "Yet your Grace holds children captive." "Justice holds them," Stannis corrected. "Innocents they may be, but their mother's sins cling like tar. They stand trial when she does, not before." Davos felt the tension coil. He stepped forward. "Ser Adam, would your lord father safety for those children?" "Aye." "Then let him lay down arms and submit to trial. King's Landing's gates will open to him as guest, not foe." Marbrand's jaw set. "My lord will shed blood before shame." "Then he shall shed it," Stannis answered, voice flat as hammered steel. "Return with my answer. The Lord of Casterly Rock has 6 days to disband his host, quit the Crownlands, and surrender arms. Failing that, he will face judgment in fire and steel. Go." Marbrand inclined head stiffly, remounted, and wheeled without another word. Hoofbeats faded into the clammy hush. Stannis turned to Davos. 6 days, he repeated low. "The city is not ready for siege. See it become so." Davos bowed, already tallying. Grain stocks, pitch jars, bolt barrels, healer tents, prayer for mercy. Melisandre's whisper brushed his ear as she passed. 6 days for a miracle, or a martyrdom. The miracle began, if it began at all, with a single loaf of bread. On the morning of the third day, Sansa Stark slipped from the Tower of the Hand carrying an oaken basket lined with linen and filled with still warm loaves. She had risen before dawn to knead dough beside the sistermen bakers conscripted to feed the garrison. No guard stopped her. Word had come from the king that Lady Sansa moved at her own wish, though steel-clad shadows dogged her at 20 paces. She crossed the muddy yard where refugees from Flea Bottom huddled in makeshift tents of sailcloth and rag. Children coughed in straw beds. Mothers searched lice from hair. Men stared with eyes hollowed by fire and fear. Sansa knelt by the nearest pallet, offered a heel of bread to a gaunt boy clutching an empty wooden sword. He watched her, mistrustful, then snatched the crust and gnawed with animal ferocity. Others crept close, drawn by the smell, until the basket lay bare. One woman wept, clutching Sansa's skirts, begging for more. A roar went up, half cheer, half plea, as the crowd pressed near. Goldcloaks moved in, spears lowered, but Sansa raised both palms. "There will be bread for all," she called, voice still girlish but ringing. "The king commands it. Return at sunset here and brings bowls. There will be soup as well." She prayed the kitchens could fulfill such promise. Yet hope flickered in 100 eyes. That was something no spear could buy. From a balcony above, Tyrion Lannister watched through the bars of his new quarters, a makeshift cage high in a half-ruined tower. He rubbed his swollen chin. "The little bird learns to fly," he murmured, "and seeds fly far on wind." Below, Ser Axel Florent arrived in a clatter of mail. "Back, you rats," he barked. "Leave her Grace be." "She is no Grace," whispered a beggar. "Just a wolf cub." Axel cuffed him, sent him sprawling. Sansa flinched but said nothing as the guards escorted her away. Yet she looked back, eyes meeting Davos's where he stood at the yard's edge. The hand nodded. That night 3 wagons of Riverland's barley rolled from the Lion Gate to the tent city, escorted by Florent men under lanterns. Sansa stood atop the first barrel, ladling soup beside sistermen casks of beer. The songs of gratitude drifted up to the ramparts and settled like balm upon hearts grown raw. In the great September of Baelor, preparations for Cersei Lannister's trial advanced under torch and tension. The Queen Dowager sat in a windowless cell below the sept's south transept, draped in coarse wool, hair hacked short by jailers. She paced the straw-strewn floor like a lioness in pit, each turn shredding fresh anger from her soul. Chains clinked with every step. On the 5th day, Grand Maester Pycelle entered with parchment save for 3 small lines. The list of charges, the names of judges, Stannis, Ser Davos, and the High Septon, and the date, tomorrow. Cersei read, then shredded the message with bare hands, nails drawing blood. "Tell your eunuch king I will choke him with my chains," she hissed. Pycelle flinched. "Your grace, mercy may yet. There is no mercy in men who burn cities they would rule." "He burned nothing," Pycelle whispered. "Pray recall the Mad King." Cersei laughed, a ragged, harpy's caw. "Recall? I was mother's milk when Aerys died, yet I remember every tale. Tell Stannis I choose trial by combat." Pycelle trembled. "That right no longer stands. The faith militant is disbanded, and the king forbids duels." "Then forbid my life," she spat. "We shall see if your gods dare take it." When the maester departed, torchlight danced upon her chains, and Cersei paced anew, mind already stalking for weaknesses in the High Septon's flabby armor, in Davos Seaworth's humility, in Stannis's iron virtue. Virtue rusts, she thought. All iron does, given salt enough. The 6th dawn broke clear at last, sky washed blue, wind sharp with coming autumn. Tywin Lannister moved his host to within half a league of the city, banners flapping crimson and gold along a ridge overlooking the Kingswood. Siege towers rolled forward under raw oxen, lines of pikemen marched in crisp cadence, and the roar of war horns echoed along gullies where dew still steamed. Lookouts atop King's Landing's walls counted trebuchets. 5, then 8, and lit beacons. Archers strung bows with stiff fingers. Boiling oil bubbled atop ramparts, and every alley leading to the Lion Gate clogged with wagons of quarrels and broken furniture ready for barricades. Davos took station at the king's left atop the barbican of the Gate of the Gods. Stannis watched the western host deploy with expression that might have been carved in stone. Melisandre stood behind him, hands folded inside scarlet sleeves. Axel Florent commanded scorpions on the lower wall. Maester Pylus distributed small vials of wildfire sealed with lead, last of the caches retrieved from the dragon pit. Stannis had reluctantly agreed they might prove necessary. Drums rolled from the Lannister lines. A lone rider cantered forward beneath white banner, Ser Kevin, arm raised. He reined in within arrow range and removed helm to reveal heavy eyes. Stannis lifted his own helm, but did not remove it. "Speak. Lord Tywin offers single combat to end this siege," Kevin called. "His champion against yours. If your man prevails, the West withdraws. If ours prevails, you release the Queen and her children unharmed, relinquish the Iron Throne, and quit King's Landing forever." A hush fell. Davos felt the weight of every arrow nocked, every pitcher held poised. Single combat, ages old, sacred in the songs, could spare thousands. Yet who might carry Stannis' standard? Renly's sword shadowed every thought, and the memory of shade assassins lingered like grave stench. Stannis' answer rang sharp across the ditch. "No champion fights for law. Law stands alone. Tell Lord Tywin. Submit to rightful crown or face destruction." Kevin's shoulders sagged. He fitted helm silently, wheeled, and rode back beneath crimson banners. Within an hour, Lannister siege engines inched closer, wicker screens bristling. Axel loosed the first bolt. It shrieked across no man's land and thudded into a shield. Others followed. The siege of King's Landing began anew. Night fell in flashes of fire and thunder. Trebuchet stones sailed overhead, trailing green sparks where wildfire vials shattered on impact. Stannis walked the walls, helm off now, speaking to every archer he met, praising steady hands, promising double rations. Davos followed with Maester Pylus, reading supply tallies by lantern. Barrels of pitch, crates of arrows, kegs of water dragged from Blackwater wells. By moonrise, Tywin's men had driven 3 rams to within 20 paces, only to watch their beams burn green as Stannis' men dumped cauldrons on the siege frames. But another tower crept on wooden wheels, shields overlapping like a tortoise shell. Davos prayed the chain might break its progress. When it neared, scorpion bolts punched it full of holes. Still it crawled, stubborn. In the quiet between barrages, cries carried faintly from the tent city. Women pleaded for children lost in dark. Men cursed the hoarding that had begun anew when ration lines grew too long. Sansa worked among them until past midnight, organizing watchfires, gifting her own cloak to a fevered infant. When a drunken Florence sergeant tried to drag a girl behind an overturned wagon, Sansa struck him with a ladle and screamed until gold cloaks hauled him away. By morning the story had spread. "The wolf girl guards us." Songs sprouted like weeds in cracked alleys. News reached Cersei's cell too. She laughed and told her jailer, "Little bird grows talons. When the lion roars again, she'll sing a sweeter tune." The 7th day dawned shrouded, sky the color of old pewter. Bells pealed from Baelor's September, summoning all of King's Landing to witness the Queen Dowager's trial. Crowds flooded the square, corralled by spearmen bristling in mail the color of rust. Davos took position beside Stannis at the marble steps while Melisandre observed from shadow of a western buttress. Above, great crystal windows glittered like knives. Cersei emerged between 2 silent jailers, chains rattling. She wore a simple gown of gray, no embroidery, no jewels. Yet her spine was straight, her gaze brazen as ever. Joffrey and Tommen followed behind, shackled at wrists but wrapped in heavy cloaks against the chill. The murmurs of the crowd swelled to a tide as the High Septon raised hands for silence. He droned the charges: adultery, treason, regicide, incest. Cersei listened in stillness, though a muscle in her jaw worked like a wound. When asked how she pled, she lifted chin. "Innocent of your lies, guilty of loving my children, none else." Gasps, jeers. A thrown stone that bounced off shield rim. Evidence came next. Letters from Eddard Stark, testimony of Grand Maester Pycelle, whispered rumors of Jaime's flight. Pycelle, forced to speak under oath, described potions provided to her grace for abortive purposes. Cersei laughed aloud, sound Brit. Flee when he stammered. You always were a worm, she said. Finally Ser Davos rose, reading the deposition of Stannis himself. How he found Robert's bastards and judged the Queen's children falseborn. When he finished, silence settled heavy as grave earth. Cersei lifted bound wrists. Ask the king who fathered his red woman's shadow. Ask him what price he paid for fire and fate. Her voice cracked the air. Judge me if you dare, but know you crouch beneath a sky about to fall. Melisandre's eyes brightened. Stannis' face darkened. The High Septon cleared throat, prepared to pronounce. Steel clanged outside, distant but sharp. A horn brayed twice, urgent. Davos recognized the signal, enemy assault. Roars rose beyond the walls. The crowd turned restless. Spearmen lifted shields. Stannis snapped command. Clear the square. Take prisoners within.
Ser Axel signaled captains.
Chaos churned as hundreds urged outward. Davos seized Stannis' elbow. He strikes during trial. Lord Tywin tests our nerve. He finds it, then, Stannis rasped. To the walls. Guards hustled Cersei and the children back into the September. Joffrey stumbled, chains clattering, eyes wild. Cersei cursed them all until the doors slammed with boom that shook stained glass. Outside, the siege tower advanced at last, hidden by night movement now visible in dawn gloom. A wheeled giant of timber and iron, roofed in wet horsehide dripping pitch, crawled toward the gate of the gods under lash and drum. Behind it surged a mass of Lannister infantry, shields locked. Banners snapped crimson. Arrows streaked down from ramparts but glanced from tower hide. Stannis strode to the parapet, voice like thunder. Scorpions! Aim for wheels! Bolts hissed, biting wood. One will shattered. The tower lurched but kept moving on sheer momentum. Rams crashed at the gate beneath. Melisandre appeared beside Davos, whisper warm. The hour the flames foretold. Davos stared at the tower, remembered Blackwater under Dragonstone and the hiss of shadow. No, he said, dread beating like waves. We fight with steel. Steel cannot touch the dark behind those boards. Stannis raised hand. Bring the wildfire pots. 3 alchemists hauled clay jars up from a hatchway, green ooze sloshing. They set them in iron baskets slung on ropes. Davos's stomach turned. A gust of wind and the wall burns. If the wall falls, we burn regardless, Stannis said. Loose, pulleys squealed. Baskets swung. Below, Lannister bowmen loosed volley upward. One basket split, spilling emerald droplets that ignited in air, cascading like fiery rain upon the infantry. Men screamed, thrashing. The tower pressed on, rocking now, but the flames clung to its hide, pitched skins hissing. Slowly, inexorably, bright green tongues licked upward, found roof seams, roared. Siege engineers inside pounded on shutters, shrieking. The tower halted 10 paces from the gate. Men tumbled out gaps, aflame. Lannister ranks faltered, stumbling over burning comrades. Stannis watched, jaw clenched, as the tower became a pillar of jade hell. Tywin's trumpets called retreat. Banners wavered, fell back. The assault collapsed in minutes, leaving charred wreckage steaming before the gate. Rain began again, gentle, hissing upon coals. By noon, the enemy lines had withdrawn beyond bowshot. Stannis toured the walls, counting dead, 30 of his own, near 500 lions. Inside the sept, the trial resumed before an audience of captains and clerks. The High Septon, rattled, pronounced judgment. Cersei guilty on 2 counts, treason and adultery. Sentence deferred until peace. Stannis confirmed. Joffrey and Tommen to remain confined but educated under Maester's care. Davos saw the Queen's hate burn hotter than wildfire. That night, Tywin's tent blazed with torchlight as lords argued. Marbrand pressed for renewed assault. Ser Flement Brax urged feint toward Rosby. Maester Crelin warned winter roads would kill horses. Tywin listened, silent. At last he rose, poured dark wine, and spoke. Stannis will not break soon. We bleed strength while Robb Stark rampages. The West cannot fight two wars. He looked to Kevin. Send Raven under white flag. Propose armistice, exchange of prisoners, trade resumption, shared tolls on Gold Road. Meanwhile, ready march north. Kevin's brow furrowed. Abandon the Queen? I do not abandon family, Tywin said, but war chooses its sacrifices. That same hour, hidden in a wardrobe of a half-silenced brothel on the Street of Silk, Bronn the Sellsword counted golden dragons, won at dice, and listened to whispers of siege towers burning. Time to ride, he told the girl in his lap. Too many lords and too few purses left. By dawn he was gone, riding east with 10 cutthroats who called themselves the Claws of the Blackwater, bound for any paymaster who offered coin. Within the city, Sansa knelt in candlelit corner of the sept, praying thanks for sparing of lives that day. When she rose, a shadow detached from a column. Lord Davos, cloak still wet. He carried a parchment bearing the dire wolf of House Stark in charcoal. Your brother's envoy reaches us tomorrow, he said softly. The king bids you write to him. Tell Robb Stark his sisters breathe, and peace may yet come. Tears blurred her sight, but her voice steadied. I will write hope, Lord Davos, and truth. Let Robb decide the sword or the quill. The envoy arrived on the 8th day. Ser Robin Ryger of Riverrun, 2 outriders, and a white banner embroidered with the direwolf. They were led blindfolded through the Gate of the Gods, past smoldering tower husks, into the Tower of Justice. There Ryger knelt before the Iron Throne, at long last crowned by Stannis' seated form. The king listened to Robb Stark's terms: recognition of northern sovereignty, release of captive lords, trade pact on furs and fish. In exchange, the North would supply grain through White Harbor and field 5,000 men against any southern rebel who threatened Stannis' reign. Stannis rubbed rough stubble. He offers swords I could use, yet calls himself king still. Ser Robin spread hands. Once blood crowns a man, the crown remains. Melisandre watched from shadows, silent. Davos ventured, Your Grace, law may permit 2 kings in 2 realms. Aegon the Conqueror allowed Dorne independence after a century of vain fire. Stannis' eyes narrowed. Aegon had dragons. I have none. Yet I have enemies enough. He rose. Tell your king, I will recognize his title king in the North and Trident, on condition he swears no alliance with Ironborn or Lannister. We forge pact at Riverrun come spring. Until then, a truce holds. Break it and wolves face the fire. Ryger bowed low, relief softening his lined face. The young wolf keeps his oaths. So he must, for oathbreakers find no mercy here. Stannis sat again, the antler crown winking. Go with safe escort, and carry these. He handed parchments. Sealed letters for Robb, Catelyn, and Lord Hoster's sickbed. Each bore the stag rampant. When Ryger was gone, Stannis looked to Davos. If Tywin leaves, we march west within the moon. But first we mend this city. Your onion ships will fetch grain from the Vale. Salador sails to Dorne for fruit and salt. We pay double the market. See it done. My king, Davos said. And the queen's sentence? Deferred. Stannis' mouth curled, weary. Let her think on gallows or pyre. Time is a harsher jailer than Axel. Moonless night cloaked King's Landing weeks later, and Tywin's host vanished west along the Rose Road, leaving only ashes of campfires and scavenged trenches. Scouts reported their banners turned north near the Trident. Stannis stood atop the walls at dawn, watching dust clouds fade. He spoke to no one but the wind. In the Tower of the Hand, Tyrion dressed for travel. Plain doublet, black cloak, a purse heavier than Davos guessed. The Hand, former or future, entered, bearing writ of safe passage across the narrow sea. Tyrion took it, Will the storms spare my ship? Storms answer to no man, Davos said, nor to kings, yet stones endure. Tyrion's laugh was soft, almost fond. Guard your king, smuggler. Laws may build kingdoms, but gold buys swords to break them. He paused at the door. Tell Sansa Stark I wish her songs be brighter than my dreams. Davos promised and watched the dwarf limp away, free into a world wider than war. Perhaps he would return, perhaps not. The wheel turned. Autumn crept across Westeros. Leaves ochred the Kingswood. Mists silvered the Blackwater each dawn. Repair crews shored roofs, cleared rubble, and hammered new beams into burned homes. Bakers kneaded barley loaves spiced with Dornish lemon. Fishermen hauled nets heavy with late-run salmon. Grain from the Vale arrived in fat cogs captained by Gulltown merchants, escorted by Lysine corsairs bold enough to fly Stannis' crimson flag for double pay. Stannis held court twice weekly in the half-repaired throne room, dispensing justice swift and austere. Petty thieves lost fingers, but bakers who cheated waits lost loaves and coin only. Mothers weeping for slain sons received pension from captured Lannister gold. The king's ledger, kept by Maester Pylus, balanced numbers like blades. Every debt tallied, every gift weighed. Melisandre visited the dungeons nightly. One by one she took leeches from Cersei's veins. For humors, she claimed, and whispered names to the flames. Tywin, Roose Bolton, Balon Greyjoy. News soon followed. Lord Balon fallen from a rope bridge, Dreadfort men mutinous. Tywin struck by fever near Harrenhal. Coincidence or sorcery? Rumors spread through taverns faster than plague. Some hailed Melisandre a prophet. Others cursed her a kinslayer. Fear, Davos thought, served king as sword. Yet fear cuts both wielder and foe. On the last day of Frostfall, Robb Stark's envoys returned bearing the king in the North Seal. He accepted Stannis' terms, naming the truce Pact of the Trident. When Stannis signed with charcoal pen, Melisandre's eyes flared. 2 kings rule, she murmured, but only one dawn rises. The parchment crackled in Davos's hands like tinder. That night, Stannis dined sparsely with his hand. Onion broth, brown bread, no wine. Candlelight danced on bare stone. Between spoons he spoke, voice low. My brother mocked my stiffness. I envied his charm, Robert's laughter. Yet they wore crowns and lost them to bottle or blade. Perhaps iron will hold longer than golden song. He looked up, face-lined. Do you think men will remember a king who fed them before he taxed them? Davos held his gaze. They will remember a king who kept his word. Stannis' shoulders eased. Then let that be my legacy. Thunder rolled beyond Shudder. Somewhere north of the wall, white winds howled across dead forests. Yet in King's Landing, lanterns burned late, and the city slept beneath a king it barely understood. While across dark fields the lion nursed its wounds, the wolf licked frozen blood, and the realm wound tighter upon fate's unseen spindle, thread by shining thread, toward a dawn none could yet name.